Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy. Still making my way through the Sacred Sites Tarot. I might try to take it 4 cards at a time. That seems to be as much as I can handle without sharing it so that I can remember stuff. I find that I'm not taking the time to write notes, so maybe this is verbal notes for me. So this is the Sacred Sites Tarot by Los Scarabeo. And does it say 2012? Yeah, 2012 copyright. But it is out of print. I checked this time, and there are some used ones. It's strange. One Amazon link I clicked on showed it at like $167 for used, and then the news were like 330 something. And then another Amazon link that I had clicked on had it for 700 and something, which of course that's absurd. Really, even $100 would be absurd. I don't know what I paid for this, but I had just been watching for it on Amazon, and at some point somebody must have been selling one that they were wanting to get rid of, and must have been put it on there for cheap, and I jumped on it. Then there was something like that. I don't know if it was Book Depository or A Books. You know, they had it for the new, like $999. Why would people even do that? Why would they imagine, even as a collector? I mean, if you buy a deck for $900 for $1,000, there's no way you're going to be making more than that on it in the future. So it's like, what? It kind of, I don't know. It's crazy. Anyway, so there it is. At present, this deck is not available, but I'm going to talk about it on my channel, mainly to talk about the places. It's interesting, you know, and the research that I'm doing turns out to be its own adventure or journey, as using the deck. So even if I were to suddenly decide, which I don't think I'm going to let go of this deck, it would have been valuable and paid for itself in this journey I'm taking in learning about these various sacred sites. So the first one is fairly easy. This is the Temple of Solomon. And so I learned that there is no Temple of Solomon, and many scholars believe that there never was a Temple of Solomon, and even that Solomon didn't exist. So whereas parts of the Bible there is evidence of, this there is no evidence of, that he is just a creation. And I can't remember if they mentioned, that that Solomon could have been I don't know if you'd call it co-opting of Egyptian sun gods, because I had no idea that Solomon is S-O-L, meaning sun, O-M meaning sun, and O-N meaning sun. All 3 syllables mean sun in some language, and language that would have been known at that time. So at the time the Bible was written. So very interesting. So I think I might just think of him as a sun god, the emperor, a sun god. Let's see, what does it say in the guidebook? The Emperor, the Temple of Solomon, Jerusalem. Inside the temple, in an inaccessible place, the Ark of the Covenant is kept. Now, I can't recall, it's in Ethiopia. There's a church that claims to have the Ark of the Covenant locked away. However, again, the scholars say that they have only seen anything that fits the description of the Ark of the Covenant in Egyptian art. And so again, there seems to be some co-opting there of Egyptian religion or mythologies. So there's that. It works for me because I am, that since I don't have a foundation in any particular religion, I'm not attached. I'm not going to gasp and say, "Oh my God," and I'm not stating these things to offend anyone any more than anybody else who looks into biblical archaeology is stating the findings or lack of findings to offend anybody. It just is. But anyway, that works for me as an emperor. Makes some sense. Then we have the Potala Palace, which that was interesting too. I had no idea that it was dedicated to Kuan Yin. I didn't know that. And that the oldest portion of it, and it has been through its own journey of an original structure. So it's essentially, yet again, one of the world's many sites where there has been one religion has been established on it and then destroyed, and then another overlaid on it. And so the original structure built for Kuan Yin, there's only like one core of it. There's only one area of it that was built around when all of this was built, which was in religious terms fairly recently. I can't remember if it was the 1600s or something like that. So it's such an impressive building, but it makes perfect sense as the Hierophant, because this is a place where people are trained. They're trained. There's religious school enclosed in there. So yeah, it was struck. The original structure to Kuan Yin was, I think, struck by lightning. So the tower could have been a good one for the tower also. Was struck by lightning and caught fire, and everything was lost but that one piece that then somebody decided to start building around it. So that's the Potala Palace. I don't think, see, I already can't remember that much. So this was super curious. When I had heard about this, I was definitely like, what? The what to Diana? Let me read the Potala Palace, and then we'll read the thing about this is the forest of Nemi. And I was totally lost on that one. All right, but let's look at the Potala Palace. Oh, yeah. Okay, yes. Lhasa in Tibet. Okay, until 1959, this was the residence of the Dalai Lama. The tombs of all of the Dalai Lamas, yes, who lived here are aligned in the center of the palace. Yep. Yep. So you definitely have the important people and ancestor worship kind of going on there, although they might not frame it that way. So this is the Lover's card, and you see two people on there, but I don't know why. It's King Numa, Okay, this is the Sacred Forest of Nemi, which I had never heard of, and is an actual location in Italy, even though they don't give it here. Maybe because they figure, well, you know, right? This is Lo Scarabeo, so it's an Italian company, so you know, of course, you know Nemi. And it's saying that the story that we're seeing here depicted says the wise King Numa and the nymph Egeria consummated their love here in this site sacred to Diana. Now, I didn't find anything like that. Doesn't matter, but you know, because I'm just looking on YouTube and there's sometimes limited. Sometimes there will be full documentaries about something. I don't know if I saw pictures. I'm not sure that there was anything on YouTube. I think I had to go by blogs or articles or something, like tourist articles or something like that. The king learned the secrets of the sacred thaumaturgy, which I think is supposed to be the use of magic, from Egeria. Okay, so that's all fine and well. So, so we have some lovers here, regardless of what they're up to. So I don't know if that's supposed to be a ceremony there. But there is, or was, I don't know if it was rebuilt or not, a temple to Diana on this lake. And I don't remember if the lake is called Nemi or if the city, which is what we might have up here, might be the city, is called Nemi. I'm not sure which one, but in any case, there was a temple to Diana, and there was in August, I think it was August 13th, for anybody who's into Artemis or Diana, August 13th, there was a torchlit procession that would come to the temple and honor Diana. I don't remember if they even said what they did there, but there was a procession. And I don't remember if it was a procession of young women or if it could be other people. My mind retains almost nothing, but there was a torchlit procession that would come to the temple. The lake, and I find this interesting, other people might not, but the lake is in the crater of a volcano, so it's an old volcanic crater. And I think just over the hill is the ocean. So it's like there's the lake and the crater, you have the hills, the forested hills, and then on the other side it goes down to the ocean. And this water, legend had it that this water, if you were a female expecting a child, that if you came and bathed in this water, it would protect you from miscarriage. And what they found, what science eventually found, was that this lake has high levels of magnesium, which is not common, and that is a very important mineral for women when they are pregnant. And of course, it's, you know, that association of pregnant women with Diana is because she was a protector. She was the goddess of childbirth and a protector of that whole process. So that was all just very interesting. I think these things help give me a feel for the cards that I didn't have before. So now, even though this is the lovers and you've got these two people here that make it a lover's card, the main thing to me is just kind of the rich history of this. In other words, it is a sacred spot because they had mentioned that even the Temple of Diana was probably built over some other pagan shrine. So, it's still acting out something from eons ago. So it's an area that has been considered sacred for a long time. And then this was probably the most interesting of all of my recently researched. I had no knowledge of this. I'm surprised they don't, well, maybe he's not there yet, so that's what it is. And I'm surprised they don't show him walking. I don't know if this is supposed to be mud down here. I suppose it is. Yes, I think that's supposed to be a puddle and mud. Okay, so this is a pilgrim. So I never knew that there was this church, what's it? Santiago de Compostela. So it's in Santiago, Spain. And so I don't know if they're trying to depict, like ages ago, right now it's in the middle of a city, how this originally looked or something. It's much more ornate and large, and quite amazing now. Or if this is just a church that he's passing on his pilgrimage. But it says in the booklet, it says, this sanctuary is the final destination of a long journey across France and Spain that has been undertaken by pilgrims since the Middle Ages. And that was confirmed. And again, being from North America, I'm totally ignorant of this tradition in Europe. But it is a really long journey that usually takes anywhere from 28 to 34 to 40 days, depending on how long, how many miles you're going to walk each day, or kilometers. And there are various, it's like as a pilgrim, you get a passport, and every site that you go through, you get a stamp on it. Your status as a pilgrim is a shell, a seashell. And one of the seashells that look kind of like a rising sun. And so you can start out with that shell and take it all the way, if you want to the ocean. That's past the Compostela. But the Compostela, the church itself, is where St. James is supposedly buried. And these various details I had to get from a variety of videos. And the videos were less, there were a couple of videos about the Compostela itself, but what there's more of, and were really quite interesting, were people's documentaries of themselves walking this, what's called the Camino, the way, walking the way. And all of the ones I saw, and I suppose this would be true, right, that were tourists, essentially. They were going on this hike because it was a hike. It was a long hike, and they wanted to do something that they considered epic or something. But essentially tourists. They weren't setting out for any particular reason, but they met people along the way. Like one person was doing it in memory of someone, another person was was it a granddaughter that was ill or something, and he was walking this pilgrimage for her, sort of a pilgrimage of prayer. So there are many reasons why people do it. It has, like the trek around Mount Kailash, which I talked about that in my last video. So in the walk around Mount Kailash at the highest point up on the pass, that's where people would tie, it's covered with prayer flags there. And it's also supposed to be a point where you leave behind your cares of your life and you're starting anew. Well, this travel, I can't remember if they say it's 500 kilometers. I can't remember. But again, there's one guy who said, I think he was doing 20 miles a day and it took him 28 days. So, yeah. And obviously he was young. Very few people, I think, would be able to do the 20 miles a day. Most other people, it was taking like, about 34, 32, 34. I didn't watch too many of them. But there's a place on this particular pilgrimage where people, I guess they're supposed to bring rocks from their own country, and then they're supposed to deposit them. So there's this mound of stone, small stones, where people deposit their stones, and the idea is that they're leaving their burdens behind to start anew, to wipe the slate clean, so to speak, a purification thing. So you leave your stones there, and then continue on. And they had said that again, like with the with virtually everything this time around, except the Temple of Solomon, which didn't exist, that that spot where they deposit the stones had been there since Celtic times. And I didn't even know the Celts were in Spain. But there's bagpipers, I guess, are common in Santiago, and that music was shared a lot in the videos. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else? There's just all kinds of interesting things about this whole journey. Yeah, it was, that whole rock thing was a pagan ritual of some kind. And then, of course, it got co-opted to mean something else once the Christians were the dominant religion. Oh, and then when they get to this church, and this you should look up, it's just kind of crazy. So you go and you get to and there are other churches along the way that do this, but when you get to the Compostela, there's a mass for the pilgrims. And this mass involves a great big incense burner. Like you could fit human beings in this incense burner. And they set it to swinging in front of, well, I would say between the priest and the congregation. There's an area in there, and you've got, so if the priest is here and the congregation is here, you have, so you have a big hall that goes out this way. We have long halls that go out this way, and this humongous incense burner hanging from the ceiling on this really long thing is set to swinging. And it's just, really, as I was watching it and thinking about it, I just thought, you guys have got to be crazy. Someday that thing is somehow going to detach. Now, of course, this is a place of worship, godly. I'm sure they believe that God would never allow that to happen. And I'm sure they're careful to maintain it. But it's just crazy. It's just flat out crazy. And so this thing, it swings. It looks like it swings almost up to the cathedral ceiling. It's just insane. You have to check it out. I don't know. Look up incense burner in Santiago de Compostela Cathedral, or whatever they're going to call it. So that's part of the whole thing, and you get a certificate at the end and something else. But anyway, so I knew nothing about this, and now that I know about it, I thought, gosh, that would be such a cool thing to do. There's lots of like towns and places to stay along the way, although part of it is very rigorous, and part of it is through farmland. So I'm sure there are places where you would walk for long stretches before, having some place to stay. And I just really have no desire to travel. But, once upon a time, I had thought, that one of the coolest things that one could do would be to go trekking in Nepal. And now this is also really cool. And I like it because it's not like here in the U.S. I was thinking, well, do we have anything like that in the U.S.? And we have these things that take 6 months. We have the Appalachian Trail, and we have, and of course that has nothing to do with religion. It's the appreciation. It's of the natural world. It's, quote unquote recreation. We have the Pacific Crest Trail. So we have various long trails. We have the Trail of Tears. That's a historical trail of unhappiness. There's a pilgrimage that Native Americans do. It's quite heartbreaking, but from South Dakota to Minnesota, I believe, that takes, I don't know if it takes a couple of weeks. I can't remember, and they generally do it on horseback. And in the winter, again, it's to commemorate a massacre, a hanging, actually, mass hanging that occurred. And that might come kind of the closest, although it's more difficult, actually, because they're doing it in the winter. You don't really want to be in the Dakotas traveling in the open in the wintertime. That's got to be brutal, because it's very cold and often very windy. That bad combination. So yeah, there's nothing that we have. And now I'm going to start to ramble. So you can exit now. Um, so I was just thinking, we have nothing like that really in the United States. That kind of a pilgrimage sort of a thing. Um, which is fine. I'm not really in a position to do that sort of thing anyway. But it got me to thinking, even like, because as I've mentioned in recent videos, I just feel like I need something to really move me to, I don't even know if it's to take better care of myself, to get back in touch, just maybe just to leave the house to get in touch with my physical body or the outside world, um, away from the computer, just something. It doesn't, rituals may be too religious a word. It might be a habit. But some of these things are really getting me thinking, like, certainly I need to be moving more. So that is a big one. I need to be moving more because my job is so sedentary. It's really not healthy. Um, excuse me. And so I'm trying to think of a way to frame something that I might do. For example, um, I live on a fairly short block. And so if once an hour, and I could see how long this would take. I don't know if it would take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, probably 10 minutes. Um, or maybe just twice a day. I know people who are just really quote unquote religious about, say, walking their dog the same place once a day, twice a day, whatever, and they do. I have never been able to establish that kind of habit. But I can see how it would be really useful to me. But I think I do have to like assign it some additional meaning. So I feel like if I assign it some additional meaning, I would be more likely to carry it through. Um, and I think that part of the thing that stops me from creating a habit is that, like, normally, like when I walk my dogs, walking around the block would be meaningless to them. I mean, it's not enough to, it's not even, it's hardly exercise for them. They could walk around 10 blocks and that might be enough. Maybe for Zippy, it would be adequate, but nothing bigger than Zippy. So I'm always thinking that I'm doing this thing, when I go out and exercise for the most part, that I'm walking the dogs. And so it's going to be a longer walk and it's going to take X amount of time and I have to have X amount of energy before I even embark on it. And we're going to encounter X amount of loose dogs that I'm going to have to deal with coming up to my dogs or coming up to me, or, and so it becomes too complicated for who I am now and where I live now. But if I leave the animals out of it, if I just leave the animals out of it and do my own little walk, I think that would be healthy for me. But again, I need to give it a larger meaning, or, and I like the rock idea, but I need to think about why I'm leaving the rocks. and where I'm going to put them, or it could be sticks for that matter. It could be just sticks or something that I pluck from my lawn, you know, a little clover or something, and carry it with me as I go and then just leave it. Or it could be something that I put out on my porch and I pick it up and carry it with me when I go and then set it back down. I don't know, but I need to think of something along those lines. I'm really inert. I'm really inert these days. And so it's really taking a lot of creative thought on my part too. And I do think that there's some depression. Um, but yeah, so it's taking a lot of finagling on my part to move myself in a healthier direction, like getting some physical activity a few times a day, and um, and doing the energy work and that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I don't know that, prayer flags. That doesn't. I mean, I could put, a clothesline up and on my porch is framed such that I could do that and tie things on there. Um, I don't know. But again, that's an activity, but it isn't an activity that has a meaning. Certainly the whole leaving burdens or leaving stresses behind is somewhat motivating, or at least it's realistic. The need to do that is realistic. So yeah, if anybody has any ideas, any suggestions for me along those lines, please leave them in the comments, and I'll put them in my noggin and see if it helps seed an idea that will be successful in getting me to do things like this, like a journey. I once had a labyrinth path mapped out in my yard, and I started to walk it as a way that, I didn't need to leave my yard. I could just do my, so no dogs harassing me, nothing like that. I could just do it in my yard. And again, it didn't quite stick. Can't say it didn't stick. I haven't done it in a long time. I'm not sure if I could even remember the pattern. And it pretty much, it lacked a purpose. And I think that's the thing. And that purpose that, I would have to have an underlying belief structure that supported that purpose. And I think that's even more difficult because, what belief structure would that be? I don't have a religious philosophy. I don't have so it would almost have to be something other than that for a motivator. So it's a brain strain. It's a brain strain. But anyway, all of these religious sites and the journeys that tend to be associated with them, whether, torchlit processions or lengthy journeys to or around certain sites. I did think while I was doing this, I was thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? One thing I could do that is not particularly health related. There's a place, it's about 30 minutes away. It's called Buck's Pocket, and I really like it. It's often very isolated, but I like it, and it's a place where you can go on a boardwalk, and then you're just on a rock outcrop, so you can kick off your sandals or shoes or whatever, and your feet are in bare contact with the earth. And I could make it, a once a month, make sure that I go out, kind of regardless of the weather, even if I just travel there in my car and sit there for a little bit, or whatever the case may be. I could make that a journey of sorts, a spiritual journey, because I do feel like that place is good for the spirit. I don't think there's any place else nearby that fits the bill in that regard. But I still, I need something that's more than once a month too. I do need this. I need something, again, like the walking around, something brief, non-intimidating, something I could do most days, like walking around the block. But I need it not to just be exercise. I need it to be something more than that in order for me to really establish a habit. So again, if you guys have any suggestions for the purpose and or underlying belief that might help me in that regard, please just share it below. Maybe it'll, even if it's not something I pick up and do, maybe it'll inspire somebody else that comes across this video. All right, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.